What's going on, guys? It's your boy Chris here. Hope everybody's doing well. Um, it's been a good day, good couple days here. My stepson graduated from high school, so he is officially out into, the real world as far as like maybe going to college or going to do something big with his life. A really good ceremony. Everything was real cool. His father flew into town with his wife and his sister, so they were able to be here for his graduation. So it was real cool. Finally met them, and they were real cool. So it was good to finally meet the kid's father and, be there and share that moment with them and everything, and my wife. So it was real cool. But the purpose for this video, it's story time. And the idea came from last night. I was on Twitter. I was watching Dynamite, and I was talking about the Magnum TA Dark Side of the Ring with Kev Castle of Wrestling Soup and the legendary Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle show, and one of our mutual friends, Terrell Thibodeau. And we were talking about how, Magnum TA, like what would have been with him and stuff like that. And the idea, because he grew up where in like Mid-South territory was, but he's too young to really remember it. And we were talking about, me and Kevin are a little bit, I'm in my mid-40s and Kev's in his 50s. So we were kind of just talking about being in that time period and what we saw. Like Magnum TA would have been like this fucking superstar had he not gotten hurt. And he would have been the NWA's Hulk Hogan. Flat out. And we talked about the crossover appeal he had. Like, everybody loved Magnum TA. He had that same appeal that Dusty Rhodes had, where he was over with every fucking body. Okay? He was over with everybody. And it would have changed the trajectory of the wrestling business had Magnum TA not gotten injured like he did. So what wound up happening, we were talking about it, and, he's from, like, Kevin's from New York, the New York area. Terrell is from, like, the Mid-South area. I'm from the Mid-Atlantic area, because I'm from Baltimore. So we were talking, I was like, dude, the NWA used to come through here all the time. Like, them and WWF used to come through all the time. Because it was, like, a big area for them, because wrestling was big here back when I was growing up. And we were talking about some of the shows, and I said, and it just came out like, yeah, man, I was at the show where Ron Simmons beat Vader for the WCW World Title. He was like, no shit, really? And I was like, yeah. I've talked about it, I've mentioned it a couple times, but I've never told the story from the perspective of being in the arena that night. And he was talking about, yeah, I've seen the video online, but if you've been there, you should do a video about it. Because there were a couple things that happened that day at that show that were kind of big at the time. Other than Ron Simmons winning the world title. There was a big match on that show that was going on in a big time feud that was one of the best tag team matches of all time that happened at that show. A debut for a big time star in WCW happened at that event. And of course, history happened when Ron Simmons won the world title. I'm going to get to that in a second. But the story of this event. So me and my best friend growing up, James, my mom took us down to the show, and we got concessions and all that stuff. We went to the show. It was supposed to be just a regular Saturday night show, right? No big deal. Or so we thought. Again, having no idea what was about to transpire that night. So we got to see, what was it? One of the first matches was Barry Windham and Dustin Rhodes against, I can't remember who they wrestled. It was kind of a squash match. I got to see a couple other matches, but one of the big matches that I remember seeing that night was the Steiner Brothers versus Dr. Death Steve Williams and Terry Bam Bam Gordy, aka the Miracle Violence Connection. Now, at the time, they were in the middle of this brutal feud for the tag titles. They were going back and forth and having these great matches all over the place. That night in Baltimore, they had one of the best tag team matches I have ever seen. The only match I put that I've seen anywhere near that match is the Owen and Brett match against the Steiner Brothers. Maybe the first FTR Briscoe Brothers match. Maybe. Those are three of the best tag matches I've ever seen. Point blank, period. And I put the Steiner Brothers and Derek Terry, Bam Bam Gordy, Dr. Death Steve Williams match at the top of my list. And the Brett Owen is like a 1A and the Briscoes FTR is like a 1B. That's how good those matches are. In my opinion. They're that fucking good as far as tag matches. Now, the other thing that happened that night that led into the Ron Simmons Vader match is initially Sting was supposed to wrestle Vader for the title that night. People forget that part. He was supposed to wrestle against Vader that night for the title. And I was there mostly to see that match because I'm a fan of Sting. I love Sting. I wanted to see Sting and Vader. I liked Vader too, but I wanted to see them wrestle for the title because they were having those great, their feud at the time, and it was for the title. So what wound up happening is Sting got taken out at that show by the debuting Jake the Snake Roberts. He made his first appearance in WCW, jumping the guardrail, attacking Sting and DDTing him on the floor. And this was during the Bill Watts era, so they didn't have any real padding outside. So he took a DDT to the concrete and did a stretcher job. So they had a thing where they chose someone to wrestle Vader for the title that night. And the person that won that raffle or whatever was Ron Simmons. So, Ron Simmons gets to wrestle Vader. We all know the match happens. Vader's beating the crap out of Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons makes his comeback. Hits the power slam. Gets the pin. And the place explodes. There are people in the stands like crying. They're in tears. People hugging each other. And I'm like, okay, Ron Simmons won. Like, all the people come out from the back and everything. And I'm like, cool, Ron Simmons won. But why is everybody going nuts? And this guy goes, he's the first black world champion. One of us finally did it. And I was like, what? I was like, you're going to be kidding. Are you serious? He's the first one? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh shit. This is a big fucking deal, right? Because, like, I was a kid. Like, we didn't fucking know. It was, like, 1992. I was, like, what? Maybe 12, 13 years old? I didn't know what I was seeing at the time. I didn't know what I was seeing at the time, but, bam, was part of history. Right? So, it was a part of history that day. Unbeknownst to me, while I'm sitting with my best friend growing up, my best friend from college, Rick, is at this same show. And 4 years later, In 1996, at Towson University, we meet for the first time. And as we get to know each other, we're talking about, because we were both wrestling fans, we're talking. I was like, you know what, man? I was at the show where Ron Simmons won the world title. He just goes, are you fucking serious? And I'm like, yeah, why? And he's like, dude, I was fucking there. I'm like, wait, you were there? He's like, yeah. I was like, dude, that was fucking crazy, right? He's like, dude, that place exploded when Ron Simmons got that pin. Because it was such a big moment. And it was a part of wrestling history. And being a part of that, looking back at it now, it's special as hell. Especially knowing as much as we know about Ron Simmons and about how much it meant. He carried the weight of a whole bunch of us on his shoulders going into that match. He carried the weight of a ton of us after he won that match. And Ron Simmons never dropped the ball. At no point did he drop the fucking ball. You know what I'm saying? Ron carried the belt with dignity. He carried the belt with class. And he paved the way for guys like Mark Henry, guys like Bobby Lashley, guys like Kofi Kingston, guys like Big E. He opened that door for all those young men to do what they've done since. Ron Killings, forgot he had the NWA title at one time. He opened the door for so many wrestlers, African-American wrestlers, to finally get that opportunity. And get that opportunity. Booker T, another one. So many guys. The respect that we should all have for Ron Simmons, it's deeper than wrestling. He blazed the trail for so many of us. And being a part of history and being there that night has always meant something to me. Realizing it now, it was such an important night. It was such an important night to be in that crowd. And it was so special to be in that crowd at the Baltimore Arena in 1992 to witness Ron Simmons win the world title. It's one of my most cherished memories I have as a wrestling fan. Because it's not often you see like something like that happen. It's very rare that you see something like that happen. So, you know, if you ever get a chance to go to a random house show or a random show, you might want to go. Because we went into that show not expecting anything other than to have a good time. And we wound up seeing something that resonates to this day as a historical event in professional wrestling. So if you get a chance to go to a random show, you might want to do it because you never know what can happen. So that's the lesson to learn from this. And I know Ron Simmons will likely never see this video. Probably will never see it. But, you know, it was an honor to see you win that title that night. And you had a hell of a career, Ron. Or Mr. Simmons. You never let us down. You always carried yourself with dignity and respect and class. You always did. You always have. And you have the respect of like so many people in the business. And out of the business. You know, you were one of the greats in football. In college football. You're one of the greats in professional wrestling. There's no one ever disagrees with that. It's not even a debate that you are now, and will always be like one of those dudes that is looked at as the fucking man. So, that's all I've got for this video. Terrell, thank you for the idea to do this. This was actually really fun. I may do it a little bit more often about, stuff I've been at that's been really eventful. But I wanted to put this out there because I was thinking about it. I said I would do it. So, promise kept. Anyway, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Peace.